Have you ever been in a situation where you didn't feel like you fit in anymore with your friends and wondered if you should keep trying? Stay tuned for a reading that can help you figure out why you're feeling excluded and what you can do moving forward. Hi everybody, I'm Sue Ellen Clayton. Welcome to my channel where we're learning how to read tarot one card at a time. In today's reading, we'll look at 5 cards to explain why a woman is being excluded from her group of friends. I will be using the Radiant Rider-Waite Tarot, and there is a link below. This question was posted anonymously online by a woman who I will call Maura. Her question was, why am I feeling left out from my friend group? Maura didn't give us any other information. I don't know if she's a teen being ostracized at school, an employee who is unhappy with her coworkers, or a senior citizen who's not allowed to sit with the cool adults at her assisted living facility. Maura drew 5 cards, one of which is from the bottom of the deck. She didn't mention using a spread, however, I will be using a 4-card spread to look at how Maura is perceived, the real cause of her being excluded, and how she can reconnect with her group. Card number 1 looks at how Maura perceives her place in the group. Maura drew the 2 of Swords. Card number 2 looks at how people in the group perceive Maura. Maura drew the 6 of Swords. Card number 3 looks at the real cause of Maura being excluded. Maura drew the Devil. Card number 4 provides advice about how Maura can heal from this or reconnect with the group, and Maura drew the Hermit. And card number 5 is from the bottom of the deck. It looks at the underlying influences, hidden factors, or subconscious energies that are contributing to this situation, and Maura drew the Hierophant. Let's begin by looking at my first impressions. The first 2 cards are both swords. These are related to how Maura perceives her place in the group and how the group perceives Maura. Swords are about thoughts and communication, so there's something that Maura has thought or said that has created the issue. We have water in both of these cards, which represents emotions, which are definitely not calm. So despite the fact that Maura is trying to focus on rational thoughts, it's been an emotionally tough situation. We're missing cups, wands, and pentacles. So I don't think the issue has to do with love, her actions, or her money or health. I think that she's had to make a choice of some kind and the group doesn't like it. The next 3 cards are Major Arcana cards. These are biggies and show the cause of why Maura is being left out and what she can do to fix it. The 3 Major Arcana cards all have their right hands raised. They also all have very imposing figures who look like they are telling you what to do. I think that Maura is feeling like she's been overpowered. The Hierophant is about the overarching energy or unseen forces of the reading. The Hierophant is all about following the rules and staying within social norms. This gives me a clue that the cause of Maura being left out is that she isn't doing what is expected of her. Now let's look at each card individually. Card number 1 looks at how Maura perceives her place in the group. Maura drew the 2 of Swords. The 2 of Swords shows us that Maura is struggling to make a decision. I think she's wrestling with her thoughts about being left out from the group. She needs to make a decision, and I think that it is between telling the truth, which would ostracize her from the group, or not speaking up and remaining part of the group. Humans are social animals, and I think we all want to be part of a group, even if we have mixed feelings about it. Maura may not like what the group stands for, but she might also not want to be alone. As we can see on the card, Maura is blindfolded. This demonstrates that she can't see her decision clearly. Behind Maura, we see choppy water with 2 large rocks. The water represents her emotions. Maura is trying not to consider her emotions and to make the decision analytically. Note that most of the swords are a cold blue color, which represents the cold, unyielding facts. Both the double-edged blade and the fact that she is holding 2 swords indicates that she does not have clarity about the facts of the decision and is unsure what to do. Maura wants the 2 swords that she's holding to cut to the truth. The rocks, like the mountains, suggest obstacles that Maura is facing. The fact that the rocks are partially submerged can mean that some of her issues have not fully surfaced. There are more rocks on the opposite shoreline, which signals continued obstacles. Maura is facing forward. She's choosing not to focus on her emotions or the obstacles. We can see that Maura is sitting on a stage. In tarot, stages represent being separated from other people. She's gone off on her own to decide what to do. Maura's seated on a gray stone bench and her feet are on a gray surface. Gray is all about neutrality, and there's a lot of it on this card. This further confirms that Maura is trying to make a balanced decision, and she's trying to keep her emotions out of it. There may be several reasons why Maura is struggling to figure out whether she wants to be part of a group. It might be that the correct decision is not obvious, or that the correct decision is obvious, she just doesn't want to make it. It can also indicate that Maura is pausing before she makes a decision. She has her arms crossed over her heart. This can demonstrate that she is protecting herself from other people, or that she's struggling to get her emotions under control because she doesn't want to acknowledge the truth of the situation. Maura's uncertainty is also echoed by her feet, which, like the swords, are facing in different directions. The swords are equal in size, so it shows that both sides of the decision have equal merit, or that she's considering both options equally. The swords must be very heavy and the position is very uncomfortable. To me, this represents that the decision is weighing heavily on her. The fact that she's wearing a nightgown shows that this decision is keeping her up at night. The waxing moon is not giving off a lot of light, so is more about illusion and confusion. The waxing moon is in its growth phase, which means that it will provide more illumination as it moves towards fullness, and Maura will continue to get clarity. Swords are also about communication. I think that is something else Maura is wrestling with, and that's whether she should speak up. I think that she knows that if she speaks up about what she's feeling, it will be game over and the decision will be made for her. Overall, I think that Maura is unsure about how she feels about being left out of her friend group. She wants the connection with other people, but she knows there is a cost. She may not like the values of the people in the group or what they will require her to do to be part of it. She's tried really hard to look at the situation objectively and to make a balanced, fair, unemotional decision between the two choices. Card number 2 looks at how people in the group perceive Maura. Maura drew the 6 of Swords. I think the group see Maura as moving on from them and starting over somewhere else. The first thing to notice is that the people in the 6 of Swords have their backs to us. They are moving from the choppy waters on the right towards the calmer waters on their left. The group sees Maura as leaving her troubles with them behind and starting over. This can refer to relocating to a new physical location, or more likely, it represents that Maura is on a mental journey and has moved beyond the group. There are 3 people on the boat. The first thing we have to do is figure out which one of them is Maura. We can do this in one of 2 ways. The first one is to decide who it is intuitively, which I did, and I believe that Maura is represented by the shrouded woman. The other thing you can do is use a pendulum, and you can see a picture of one on the screen. It is a weighted object to which you can ask yes/no questions. You look at each person on the card and ask your pendulum, does this represent Maura? And you'll get one of 3 answers, yes, no, or I don't know. I have a whole video on how to use a pendulum, which I'll link to below. The pendulum also confirmed that the shrouded woman was Maura. The boat, the ferryman's tunic, and Maura's clothing are all orange. This is a blend between red, which represents passion and action, and yellow, which is about clarity and protection. So orange represents that Maura is on a journey that includes action, passion, clarity, and protection. The boat is called a punt. These are flat-bottom boats with a square-cut bow designed for use in small rivers and shallow water. The boat represents our journey through life. The ferryman is steering with a black pole, which represents the unknown. It's interesting to note that a punt is the kind of boat used to carry souls across the river Styx to the afterlife. Maura is obviously still alive, but it makes me wonder if her decision to leave her friend group has left her feeling emotionally dead. In front of the figures, we see 6 blue and white swords pointing downward in the boat. The fact that the swords are pointing downward means that the issues they represent are no longer actively hurting Maura, However, the pain is not completely resolved. Pam Richards, in her book Understanding Tarot, describes the grouping of the swords. In front of Maura is the ace, which shows that she is clear about the reality of her situation. On the left, which is the emotional side, we see the two of swords, which is about indecision. The sword in the center, along with the three to the right, represent the four of swords. The four of swords is a card about rest and renewal, which suggests Maura's need to heal her emotions and recover from the turbulence of her mind. Maura's head is covered and she appears to be lost in thoughts. Her feet are touching the swords, and if she looks up, she will be reminded of her problems. In summary, I think the group knows that Maura is having trouble with them. They see her as moving on to a new part of her life where things aren't nearly as turbulent. Unfortunately, they also know that Maura will be taking her problems with her. I also think that the group members are angry with her. They feel like they're being blamed unfairly for Maura's issues and that she's taken the easy way out by fleeing the situation. Card number 3 looks at the real cause of Maura being excluded. Maura drew the devil. The devil is a card about manipulation and unhealthy attachments, including addictions. We see a couple at the feet of the devil. They appear to be chained to his nastiness. However, if you look closely, the chains are loose and they could escape if they wanted to. As a leader, the devil's not exactly a nice guy. His right hand is being held upward in a position that mocks the faith in spirit. The devil's left hand holds a torch that is facing downward. Rather than illuminating the world by holding it upward, the devil's goal is to keep everyone in the dark. This is interesting in terms of group dynamics. If we consider the devil to be the leader, we can see that the couple is becoming more like him, which is what happens in groups with an overpowering leader. This is the same couple that we saw in the Lover's card, but now they are growing small horns and also have tails. This symbolizes that they are becoming more like the devil as they remain in his presence. They also believe that they are powerless without him, even though it's not true. I think that Maura is viewed as a troublemaker. Maura could see that bad things were going on in the group, and she wasn't keeping this information to herself. She had figured out that she could get out of the chains. Her presence was viewed as detrimental because it would make the remaining people harder to control. Basically, groups don't like members to speak out and upset the status quo, especially if you're one of the leaders who benefits from keeping things the way they are. I think we've all been in that situation. We don't like something that's happening. It might be with the coach of your child's little league, the priest at your church, or the actions of a neighbor. It bugs you, but you keep your opinion to yourself because you're not sure if you're correct. And then somebody speaks up or posts on Facebook, and you realize that you're not the only one who feels this way. And suddenly there's a lot of dissent in the group that has to be dealt with. From a group dynamics viewpoint, the best thing is to ostracize the person who is doing the criticizing and get them out of there as quickly as possible. I remember when my daughter was in kindergarten. Her teacher was a new graduate and also new to the school district, and nobody knew anything about her. My friend and I went to meet the teacher night. Unbeknownst to me, we both had the same feelings of dread in the pit of our stomachs as we listened to her describe her plans for the year. Everything sounded good and there was nothing we could put our fingers on. Plus, we were both reasonable people and wanted to give her a chance. However, as the weeks went by, there were a lot of red flags and we finally spoke with each other about our concerns. Once our suspicions were confirmed by someone else, there was no going back and our anger fed off of each other. Things were so bad that my friend transferred her child to another classroom, and I ended up taking my daughter out of the school altogether and putting her in a private school. Once it became known that two parents were having problems, more and more parents came forward with their own issues. So I think that the real cause of Maura being excluded is that the leaders of the group didn't like her decision. They knew that she was questioning what was going on in the group and trying to decide whether to speak up. They knew that once her thoughts were public, it might result in losing control of other people. Card number 4 provides advice about how Maura can heal from this or reconnect with the group. Maura drew the Hermit. I think Maura needs to accept that she should not be part of this group in the future. She has to be okay with spending some time alone and doing some self-reflection so that she can heal. In this reading, the Hermit is basically the continuation of the Two of Swords. Maura has made her decision, and this is the result. She is alone. It's interesting that the Hermit, which represents Maura, shows a repeat of the gray that we saw in the Two of Swords. In that card, Maura was sitting on a gray stage, on a gray bench, wearing a gray nightgown. Gray is all about neutrality, and she was trying to make a decision based on the facts. The Hermit is also wearing gray, in this case a gray cloak. She's no longer inappropriately dressed like in the Two of Swords. She's covered up and has made a decision. Her focus is not on being part of the group, it is on looking within. The lantern symbolizes finding the truth within yourself, not from an external source like a group leader. Note how small the lantern is. It pierces the darkness and illuminates the path just ahead of Maura, but it doesn't show her entire journey. The yellow staff is a sign of authority and indicates that she can become a source of light for other people. The Hermit can also represent a mentor or spiritual guide. It's possible that Maura may need to seek out help to get over this situation. This could be from a counselor or a religious figure. In summary, Maura will need to spend some time alone. You've made it this far in the video, and I wanted to stop and ask for a favor if you're not already a subscriber, and that is to please hit the subscribe button. It's free for you, and it will also help me to grow this channel. Plus, it means that you won't miss anything. Thanks so much, and if you're already a subscriber, I truly appreciate your ongoing support. Now let's get back to the video. Card number 5 is from the bottom of the deck. It looks at the underlying influences, hidden factors, or subconscious energies that are contributing to the situation. Maura drew the Hierophant. The first thing we need to do is figure out whether Maura is the Hierophant or one of the disciples. It's the same process we did in the Six of Swords. We can do this intuitively or use a pendulum. My intuition told me that Maura was one of the disciples, and my pendulum confirmed it. The Hierophant is based on the Pope and the Catholic Church. He is God's representative on earth. He is not here to help you find your own path to spirituality. He's here to give you the exact path to finding God. His focus is on the rules, rituals, doctrines, and moral codes that you must follow. The Hierophant doesn't have to be a religious figure. In another video, I compared the Hierophant to the president of a homeowners association. Their goal is to keep the neighborhood looking pleasant and harmonious. They have rules for everything from how tall your grass can be, to when you can take out your trash, to what color your homes can be painted. I've lived in these communities, and it's nice because you know that your neighbor is not going to keep junky cars on his front lawn. But it's also annoying when you can't have your house guests park overnight because HOA rules prohibit street parking after 1 a.m. It's interesting how much the Hierophant looks like the devil. Both are sitting on thrones with two people between them, and both are holding something in their right hand and making gestures with their left hand. The Hierophant is holding up a thumb and 2 fingers, which represents the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit from the Christian religion. The devil has a cross on his hand, but it's deceptive instead of being a religious symbol. Once again, we see the color gray, which is all about neutrality. In this case, we have 2 pillars instead of 2 swords like we saw in the first card. The 2 disciples at his feet both have a tonsure, which is a shaved bald spot. In many religions, hair was considered to be a source of vanity. Shaving your head represented commitment to a religious order and signifies a spiritual openness to God. That's another thing about groups. You often have to do something to show that you fit in. That might be getting a tattoo, wearing a jacket and tie to the office, or wearing cat ears or cat-themed jewelry to a Taylor Swift conference. The Hierophant is clearly the most powerful figure in the card. The keys are a religious symbol based on Jesus talking about the keys to heaven. It signifies that the Hierophant has the keys to unlock the spiritual wisdom as well. The idea is that the guru knows better than you do, so you really shouldn't speak up with your opinion. So I think the underlying energy in this card tells us that Maura has struggled with conforming to the rules, norms, or morals of the group because she wanted to be part of a community. She has faced a difficult decision about whether she should try to fit into the group or move on. Ultimately, she did not want to adhere to rules that she did not agree with. That led her to the decision to move on and to spend some time alone healing. Let's summarize. Maura's question was, why am I feeling left out from my friend group? Card number 1, the Two of Swords, looked at how Maura perceived her place in the group. She was struggling to make a decision between telling the truth, which would ostracize her from the group, or not speaking up and remaining part of the group. She wants the connection with other people, but she knows there's a cost. She tried really hard to look at the situation objectively and to make a fair, balanced, unemotional decision about whether she wants to be part of the group. Card number 2, the Six of Swords, looks at how people in the group perceive Maura. Basically, they see Maura as moving on from them and starting over somewhere else. Card number 3, the Devil, looks at the real cause of Maura being excluded. The reason is that they consider Maura to be a troublemaker. They know that once her thoughts were public, they might result in losing control of their members. Card number 4, the Hermit, provides advice about how Maura can heal from this or reconnect with the group. I don't think that Maura will elect to rejoin the group. Instead, she will choose to move on. She needs to spend some time alone, thinking about what happened so that she can heal. Card number 5, the Hierophant, is from the bottom of the deck and looked at the underlying influences that contributed to Maura feeling left out of the group. Maura struggled with conforming to the rules, norms, and morals of the group because she wanted to be part of a community, yet in the end, she did not want to adhere to rules she didn't agree with. This led to her decision to leave the group and to spend some time alone healing. I hope that this video gave you some ideas that you can apply to your tarot practice. Please leave a comment if you'd like to share what you learned. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.